Live from MMA Fighting Studios, this is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck.
The iconic voice, Sylvester Lynn, welcomes you to a special Tuesday edition of BTL. Thank you for joining us. A lot happened over the weekend, none of which took place for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. They gave us a rare Saturday night off. We saw revenge, weirdness, confusion, naive behavior, and today we tap into all of those things and feelings. So let us introduce the panel and not waste any more time. First, he's Mr. No Gray Area, the Hot Take Kid, the Baron of Boop himself from MMAfighting.com, the Prince of Atlanta as well, Jed Meshew is here. Hi, Jed. Look at the 24-inch pythons.
Hey, Mike. Sorry, everyone. We're doing this on Tuesday. It's my fault. I'm going on vacation later this week, so I could not do Thursday. So we had to, mix things around. So thank you for accommodating me, so I can talk to you about UFC Denver. What a great card!
Yes, we wanted to make sure you got your chance to give him a Schulen's scale or some sort of number on that card before you go away, but. Facing Jed this week, making his return to the program, you might hear his melodious voice on to the next one. He's the Prince of Positivity, and he's not just my best friend, he's the best friend to us all. From MMA Fighting, Alexander K. Lee, Mr. AK. How's it going? How's Canada?
Hi, everyone. Canada is doing great. Canada is cooking, baby. Semi-finals of the Copa America, a tournament that geographically they shouldn't even be in. Makes no sense. But here we are, very excited. Big game tonight. I guess maybe by the time some people listen to this later in the week. What?
They split why geographically, or they not?
Because Copa America Copa America is the South America's teams.
I mean, but I just assumed it was all of the Americas.
No. We have CONCACAF is the North America and other. Yeah. But it's in the U.S., so they're like, oh, let's invite USA and Mexico and Canada, and presumably USA. They thought was going to advance.
They were wrong. In my head, I thought CONCACAF and Copa were the same thing.
Here comes Canada, baby. Here comes Canada.
I do not understand the language you are speaking.
There is no South and North America. There's just the Americas.
Football, guys. Football.
All right. Well, I mean, look, we could do a whole separate round about football, but we're not going to. Let's begin with the story of this past weekend. It was not in football. It was in the world of boxing. The rematch everybody was waiting for between Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal. This time took place over 10 rounds of boxing. And in the end, really fun fight. Diaz wins a majority decision. Very close fight. I thought Diaz won in watching it live. Thought he won when I rewatched it yesterday. One judge scored it a draw. One judge scored it 97-93 for Diaz. One scored it 98-92, which is absolutely absurd. I scored at 96-94 for Nate both times I watched. So it ended the night in a very fun way, and Diaz got some revenge, and now the story can continue if it wants to. So my question for you, Jed Meshew, the build to this fight was all over the freaking place, literally and figuratively. Multiple dates, multiple locations, a lot of press conferences. The fight week was a very tough time, from the open workout to the presser to the weigh-ins. It was a really difficult fight week to get it invested in. However, the fight delivers. They sell out the Honda Center in Anaheim, big crowd, and they were the talk of the weekend in combat sports. So from where you sit, is this going down as a win? Should a victory lap be taken after this?
100%. Like how would it not be a win? Like an unmitigated win for everyone involved, other than maybe Famio. I'm not really sure they got their money's worth. I would strongly doubt they made money based on kind of some of the numbers we've been hearing about what the payouts were for top down, basically. But look, I don't remember how public we were about this, but certainly privately, we were pretty low on what was happening this weekend or this past weekend. I certainly was. I wrote about it for the site, said, this just doesn't appeal to me. I don't think this is necessarily a bad matchup. It just has no interest to me. And also, Not really sure it has interest to other people. Even the fighters themselves in that fight week they didn't put it over on fight week, and then they go out there and have, one of the better scraps of the year. Saw some people saying great, best fight of the year. That's insane. But this was a competitive, entertaining, interesting fight. Both dudes got paid a bag, so it's obviously a huge win for them. Huge win for Nate Diaz. Huge win for everybody except maybe Fanmio, because I don't think they made money because they're paying several tens of millions of dollars in total payout on this. But even so, I don't think anyone leaves this upset. Casey, our wonderful producer on the ones and twos, was there, said that the vibe in the arena felt like it had that big fight feel. So huge win for everybody. But the biggest winner is Nathan Diaz, because let me tell you, Mike, I did not watch this live. I had other things to do with my time. It was terrific. I woke up, I went to MMAfighting.com. It's a great website. I was like, let me see what happened. Let me find out where we're at. And I see, Nate Diaz wins a decision. Okay, majority decision. Dive into it. I went back, watched the fight. But my first thought when I saw that Nate Diaz won and then his call out after was, oh shit, Nate Diaz is about to get a welterweight title shot. Because this is the myth of Nate Diaz. It doesn't matter what goes on. He walks in the light. He and Alex Pereira are the main characters. And so they get to manage to weave through things that would beset any other one. Like, nah, it's good. And now this man might come back to the UFC and get a title fight. So everybody's a winner, but Nate's the biggest one.
AK, agree with this. Everybody wins. This is a gigantic success all around. It doesn't matter how it builds up, as long as it ends the way people can be happy about, or at least feel like it was a fun thing that they did on a Saturday night. Plus the crowd, all of that. I don't think this does great on pay-per-view. I'll be stunned if we get a number that's like remotely good, even if it matches what UFC 301 did, honestly, on pay-per-view. It would be a shocker to me. But is this a win? Did you come out of this weekend thinking, you know what, Diaz, Masvidal, everybody involved, take a victory lap. You've earned it.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Jed said. I'll even go as far as to say that I think Fanmio is one of the winners. Wow, there you go. There goes my voice. Maybe I don't believe it. I would say Fanmio is one of the winners because it's a loss leader type thing, right? It's like they definitely did not make money on this event, unless there's some other accounting that we're not aware of. I mean, these companies are pretty smart. I think they took a loss. I think they knew going in they were going to take a loss, but I didn't know what Fanmio was before. I actually maybe still don't know what Fanmio is, but I'm aware of the brand. I think the brand visibility took a big jump this weekend, at least among a certain segment of sports fans, combat sports fans, if that's who they're targeting. Your average, plenty of combat sports fans now know, Fanmio, they're the guys who put on the Diaz Masvidal fight. And if that leads to them checking out whatever else it is that Fanmio does, maybe they will, maybe they won't. But brand recognition is very powerful. So I don't think it's sustainable for them to be doing these kind of payouts every 4 months or something, like trying to hold an event every 4 months to do some of this. That's definitely going to cost them a lot of money. But once a year, once every 8 months, maybe, if they can put on fights like this, maybe don't shell out the massive contracts they probably had to pay for this one, they could have something going here. So Fanmio, maybe not the biggest winner, but I would put them on the winners list. I do think there's just something to be said about us saying fan. I've said Fanmio more times in the last 60 seconds than I have in my entire life. So that has to stand for something. And Jed also mentioned that, Casey was there. Casey was giving us updates, like how great it seemed being live. It even came off really well in the broadcast. I think, obviously, it's not something someone could just randomly tune into. But if let's say you watch the prelims were free. If someone tuned into the prelims and just watched sort of how the broadcast was and how it was presented, you'd be like, oh, wow, this actually looks like a big deal. This looks like a normal boxing event. And then your curiosity might be piqued when you see Nate Diaz, see Jorge Masvidal. That might get you to shell out for the pay-per-view. I don't know. You see Anthony Pettis on there, Chris Avila. Hey, he's a Nate Diaz guy. So the production was where it had to be. I think it just came off like any high-profile boxing event, and that says a lot again because we are talking about Fanmio and just again some people involved who you wouldn't associate with boxing normally. But there you go. It came off really well. Mileage may vary with the quality of the fights. I'm going to give us a pat on the back, us and the so-called MMA media a pat on the back. A lot of us were pretty not like super enthusiastic about this card. We weren't like pushing it as we would some other events. I think Jed mentioned our roundtable. Him, Damon Martin, and I, we wrote one of the questions we asked was, why should fights fans tune in? Jed's answer was just, there's nothing better to do. Damon was, who
I
Nate
was
Diaz,
right.
and Nate Diaz. Damon said, well, you know who Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal are, and I went with the very generic combat sports is fun. So we weren't exactly presenting the most compelling case for people to tune in, but I think we also and again, a lot of other people who wrote about this, I think we set the appropriate level of like excitement. I think if you got too hyped up for this, then the card is kind of like just meh. I think if you went in again, very low expectations, just happy to see Diaz Masvidal making money, see some recognizable names on the undercard. You had a good time. You had a really good time. So yeah, win for everyone.
Now for the fight itself, AK, what's your biggest takeaway from Nate's win over Masvidal? I mean, maybe, I don't know even know if you agreed with the scorecards and Nate winning, but when it was over, even reflecting on it now, when you think of the fight, the fallout of it, what's the first thing that comes to your mind in terms of how the fight played out?
I had it 95-95, but again, several of the rounds could have gone either way. Had no problem with the Diaz decision. You mentioned Mike 98-92, a little crazy. But yeah, my first takeaway is like, Jed is right that Nate Diaz is untouchable. He can really pretty much do everything he wants. But it is nice to be back in the winning column. I do think winning matters to some degree. With a guy like Diaz, again, you look at his record, he's lost many, many times and hasn't hurt him that much. But now to say like, oh, I have this boxing win over a former rival. I avenged a loss. That's huge. I didn't love him using his post-fight platform to call for a Jake Paul rematch. I didn't love the Leon Edwards rematch either, even if there is a frighteningly high chance that someone at UFC headquarters is twirling their mustache right now, going like, yeah, if Leon beats Bilal, I mean, so they made sense. It just wasn't exciting for me. But yeah, just seeing Diaz win again felt good. I know he beat Tony Ferguson in his last UFC fight, but that was such a weird circumstance. The Jake Paul fight, I think, left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Not just that he lost, that like it was a pretty not great fight. It was a forgettable fight, and him losing to a YouTuber, influencer, whatever you want to call him. Not great for the Diaz brand. It's not going to break it, but not great. There's definitely, you have to think like, man, how can Diaz not beat this guy? So for him to get in there with an actual credible fighter, and I thought Masvidal looked like a pretty decent boxer too. Again, whether you thought he won or not, he looked good in there. Like he knew what he was doing. It was some decent boxing. For Diaz to triumph over that and do it in his own way too. He was fighting Diaz style. He just reminded people like why he's so fun to watch, what makes him unique. Why he has this following that he has. It was 100% Diaz, and win or lose, that's all that his fans are asking for. So, yeah, I love that. As much as the industry changes around us, this guy is the same person he was like 15 years ago.
Jed, I know when you read everything on MMA Fighting and you saw the words and heard what Nate had to say, your biggest takeaway was dude's about to go back to the UFC and fight Leon Edwards and get a title shot. But aside from that, what's the biggest takeaway from all of this? Nate winning, exacting some sort of revenge. What stands out to you?
Who cares? Revenge? What revenge? It's just not the same. Like it's in an MMA fight. I think everyone would still comfortably pick Jorge Masvidal to beat Nate. Some people thought he beat Nate in boxing. I truly don't care. That fight was no dude like convincingly won. It was just a close fight. If we're removing the Nate Diaz gets a title fight, which is again my biggest takeaway. My other biggest takeaway is I just forget how I somehow find a way to not remember how much Nate Diaz can bend the narratives into the places he wants it to go. Because coming off, like he left the UFC in the most perfect fashion possible. He was supposed to get obliterated by Hamzat. All of the shuffling happens and suddenly he fights Tony Ferguson, subs Tony Ferguson, brilliant prize fighting, gets out and says, hey, I got to go handle some boxing business, but I'm going to come back. Doesn't put the UFC down, doesn't burn any of those bridges. Says, hey, this is where the best fighters in the world are. I just have business to attend to elsewhere. Goes and does it, gets the Jake Paul fight that we all knew was coming, has been kind of doing his Real Fight Inc. stuff, gets Jorge Masvidal, who's currently still under UFC contract, somehow gets this fight to happen. And again, wins the fight. Like AK said, winning is important. You can't lose in perpetuity and kind of still have this aura. But the fact that he can navigate his career into places where the losses don't mean much and the wins are enormous. You know, he lost the rematch to Conor. No one cares. He lost Leon Edwards, but he had that moment in the 5th round, so it's fine. Like he is able to insulate himself from the things that bring other fighters down and then carve a path through to the high end here, which is, hey, I looked good. People now remember, ooh, this is why we like Nate Diaz, not because he's, you know, not doing anything and losing to Jake Paul, but kind of being an asshole in the cage and throws on the gilly. We like him because he can do that and win and put, you know, 700 strikes out and do this. This is why we like Nathan Diaz. And he gets to have that positive momentum as he then says, hey, I'm open to a return to the UFC under the right circumstances. If not, I'm open to make a bunch more money with Jake Paul, because those are kind of the options for him, right? Like there's not a ton else for him to do. It's go back to the UFC or wait for Conor to get out of it. But no, because he can go back to the UFC and maybe he doesn't get a welterweight title fight. You know, there's another guy in the UFC right now pretty clearly doesn't want to fight the guy that he's supposed to be fighting, who has a history with Nate Diaz. And if he says, hey man, fine, you're not going to give me Leon Edwards, give me Conor McGregor. I'll come back. I'll fight Conor in December and we'll do Conor Nate 3. And then if I win that, I get a welterweight title shot against Leon Edwards. Like he is just, he navigates his career so perfectly, despite being like a pretty mid fighter. Like I like Nate Diaz. Not a great, like he is not an all-time great fighter, but he is an all-time great prize fighter.
Completely agree with that. So I'll go back to you, Jed, because you laid out what could or should be next for Diaz. I saw some people hit me up, be like, well, now Nate could just go to PFL and make a whole bunch of money. I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there's zero chance Nate Diaz is going to PFL. Even if PFL offers him $15 million, he ain't going. He does not want to fight for them. It appears. But where does Jorge Masvidal go now, Jed Bashu? Is that appetite still there? I mean, he fought well. His boxing looked really good. He just fought a guy who is like the complete opposite of your boxer, like a technical boxer. And I think while Jorge did things to throw Nate off, coming out southpaw, etc., he boxed really well. And Nate just is like, I'm just going to come in and push forward and throw a billion shots. But where do you think Masvidal goes from here? Where does it happen? Who does he fight, etc.?
When we wrote about this beforehand, I said that I think he's going to fight. Like pretty clearly, Jorge Masvidal's end game was, I'm going to beat Nate Diaz, then I'm going to try and fight. Holy crap! Major brain fart on Jake Paul's name. Pretty clearly, like I'm going to try and fight Jake Paul because that's the thing that everyone wants to do. Probably not going to get that fight coming off a loss against Nate Diaz here, right? But the other option that I said for him was, it's weird and I don't particularly care for it, but it feels like it's just going to happen now. And it's Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen, you know, has that fight, big quotation marks there, with Anderson Silva and was like pointed about it. Yeah, this is me warming up to figure out how to box so I can fight Jorge Masvidal for reasons that I still don't understand, but whatever. Coming off a loss kind of makes total sense for them to do that. It will probably draw interest and eyeballs. Two relatively big stars, even though they're old and past their prime. So it feels like that's what's going to happen. And then if he goes and he beats up Chael, then yeah, Jake Paul. Like it's Jake Paul. His gimmick is what his gimmick is right now, you know, and I'm not disparaging him, but he's doing Jake Paul things. Fighting Mike Perry, it's toughest test of his career, I think, arguably. Maybe Tommy Fury was, whatever. But like, then he's going to fight Mike Tyson. He's going to, I don't even want to say kill Mike Tyson because that's actually like a tragic possibility. He is going to beat Mike Tyson. And then where does he go? He's never going to actually fight like a WBC ranked dude. And so Jorge Masvidal, that's just a big name, can do it. It's there. So I think that's kind of the path for Jorge is Chael and then try and get himself into the Jake Paul sweepstakes.
AK, we didn't have on to the next one, so we'll do it here. What's next for Nate Diaz? What's next for Jorge Masvidal?
Yeah, well, for Jorge, all I want to say is just not Tommy Fury. Anything but I think he mentioned Tommy Fury, right? Somewhere in there, or I don't know how I saw that pop up, like Masvidal and Tommy Fury. Please, God, no. I think that could be a fun, like maybe like Clash of Worlds type of thing, and Tommy Fury could kind of almost do like a Jake Paul thing, like, oh, let me see what it's like to beat up one of these like MMA fighters turned boxers. So Tommy Fury's side, I'd probably be down with it, but the fight itself, I just can't imagine it being remotely entertaining. I don't think anyone's knocking anybody out. It would just be dreadful. So I don't know and Masvidal would be interesting because I guess it's kind of like, maybe he can get Jake Paul, maybe he can't. If he can't get Jake Paul anytime soon, he gets the guy who beat Jake Paul. But yes, please, Masvidal, don't. No, Masvidal's team, don't do this. Tommy Fury's team, don't do this. And now that I've said it, I'm almost sure that we're going to see it. With Diaz, it's so tricky because he won and he should have a lot of options. But like I said, I don't love the Jake Paul rematch. I just can't. Who wants to see that again? Like, I don't care. The Leon Edwards thing, I'm trying to speak it out of existence if that's possible. Like, I know it's possible. I know we've said why, all the reasons it could happen. I'm just really hoping it doesn't. Like, we don't need to do this ever. And Conor McGregor, it feels like it's definitely going to happen someday, but just not next. There's so many just weird little hurdles in the way. Plus, there's that part of me that wonders if Conor is going to fight anyone again ever in MMA, in boxing, slap fighting, anything. You could not surprise me if he just turned out like one day he retire, like he just quietly retires. It's just another 5 years of I'm coming back, and he just never fights, and eventually we all just start looking the other way and just going like, yeah, forget it. We're just going to stop matchmaking for this guy. So for Nate, I don't know. I would like to see him face a real boxer. I know that's something that's just people roll their eyes at, but I don't know, like a real mid-level boxer. There's no money in that for him, but him and his boy Chris Avila, I'm like morbidly curious how their style actually would work against someone who really, really knows what they're doing. Because I don't know if we'll have time to crap on Chris Avila later, but like I know he won. This Stockton style of boxing, very high volume, very little impact. I know I shouldn't say. I'm sure if they punched me once, I would die, but you know what I mean. When they're facing another professional fighter, it's so weird to watch. So my wish is that he fights some boxer with some sort of cachet, not just some influencer or something, not another MMA fighter. I know that's not going to happen, but I really want to see the worlds collide somehow. I just don't know who that could be and who would make sense for Diaz in that sense right now.
It's so funny. I think Jose and I might be the only two people who thought Chris Avila versus Anthony Pettis was not bad. We actually had a good time watching it. I don't know.
It wasn't I didn't think it was a bad fight, like entertainment wise. I just didn't look at that fight and go like either of these guys have any actual like medium level boxing ability. I did not think, but the fight itself was like the whole card. I thought, other than the Dubois Mosley, what did I say? Dubois, the Mosley Jacobs fight. Excuse me, Mosley Jacobs fight was very dull. I mean, I'm sure it was great technical boxing. Maybe I'm just being a noob, but it was dull. It wasn't fun to watch. The crowd was very restless. You could hear them. But Avila Pettis was certainly fun. Carmel Moten doing his thing was exciting. The Vargas Sean Garcia fight was really, really, really fun. Like that fight was super fun. That was arguably, honestly, maybe better than the main event. It was a really good fight. So yeah, the card overall was good. And yes, but Avila and Pettis, it's not a great boxing match, Mike. But you're right. I was watching and I was like, man, I'm kind of locked in. And also, thank goodness it's only 6 rounds. So there you go.
Very true. Very true. All right. Well, that was Diaz versus Masvidal. We'll see what happens next for both guys. We're going to Denver, Colorado next here on this program. The point for round 1 goes to Prince of Positivity. 1-0 for AK. Nicely done. Go Canada. Football.
That'll be the score tonight. 1-0 Canada over Argentina. That'll be the score tonight.
Wow. You're really, really pulling for something big and impressive, huh?
Yeah.
Thrilling stuff.
Right.
Just like,
might I mention that I watched those two teams play earlier and it did not go that way.
Canada did a lot better than people thought. All right. 1-0, as we say in the football world tonight. 1-0.
they probably should have lost like 4 or 5 to
But
nothing.
they didn't.
They only lost 2-0.
They had their chance.
Messi missed 2 stone wide
He's
open
washed.
goals.
It's
It
washed.
was infuriating.
Oh, boy.
He's washed.
Oh boy. Well, maybe they could play in Denver, and we'll see if Messi's success can improve in Denver. But that's where the UFC is heading, and we have a main event between Rose Namajunas and Tracy Cortez. It's supposed to be Rose Namajunas versus Macy Barber. Tracy Cortez is supposed to fight Miranda Maverick next weekend at the world's most famous Apex. Did a little shuffling of the deck. Couple fights got added over the last week and a half or so, and a couple of good ones. Drew Dober versus Jon Silva seems to get everybody all excited, but AK, I'll begin with you. Excitement levels for UFC Denver. We're out of the world's most famous Apex. We're out of the most infamous warehouse around the globe, and we're in Denver at your favorite arena name, because none of us know what this sponsor actually is. But yeah, UFC Denver. How excited are we?
Yeah, Ball Arena. I mean, they play basketball there. There you go. Sums it up. How can I complain? This is not how good I think the card is. You're essentially how excited I am. I'm at a solid 8. One, anytime you're out of the Apex, guys, that's like a 1 point. That's like already a 1 point. So like if we start with the UFC card with a baseline of like 6, it's already a 7 just not being at the Apex. And then you just have to have a few decent cards on there. A few decent fights on there. It's also only an 11 fight card, which I like. If this was like 13, 14 fights, I might be dragging my heels a little bit to get to the TV to turn this one on. But yeah, it's not a bad as far as how it's structured. I think it's a normal, pretty late start. It is like 8, 6, whatever, a 7 p.m. prelims, 10 p.m. main card. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, it's a late one.
It's a late one, right? Yeah. Well, so nothing to be done about that. If this was afternoon MMA, it would probably bump it 8.2, 8.4, and bump it up higher. But I like it. I also like a lot of the people on this card, so I guess I'm biased. This is a mileage may vary thing. But I tell you, at least for the most part, I feel like we're not getting stuffed with barely there contender series prospects and ultimate fighter like hangers-ons. I like a lot of things. Like I'm a big Andre Petrossi guy. I don't know if people aren't fans of his fighting style. I'm a fan. I still think he's could be a top 15 guy at middleweight. Montel Jackson getting back in the cage is always fun. Maria Agapova back after a long time. I'm just looking up the card now. Fatima Klein, a lot of people are excited about her debut. She was supposed to do contender series. Now she's just thrown right into the fire with Jasmine Yasadavicius, again, proud Canadian. Josh Van. I mean, there's like really good names around the prelims, and then on the main card we got some fun ones: Drew Dober, Jon Silva. I think Ponzinibbio Salikov was a fun matchup, and I like the main event. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by the main event. I think this is the right test for Tracy Cortez right now. I know it was supposed to be Macy and not Tracy, but Cortez has just been such an interesting story over the past few years. She's clearly someone worth pushing. She has a really good following. I just checked. She has almost 1 million followers on Instagram. She has a good record, right? She has a very glossy looking undefeated UFC record. This is a massive step up in competition for her. I think like the best opponent the best win on her resume is like a 19-year-old Erin Blanchfield way back in the day. Very controversial score. And that's it. Other than that, she's beaten some pretty low tier fighters at 125. So she'll have a size advantage, but I mean, as far as experience goes, high level experience, man, the gap is enormous. But maybe she's catching Rose at the right time. We don't know. So this is exactly why this kind of matchup is intriguing. I'm not of the camp that's like, oh, the Cortez matchup is better than the Barber-Rose matchup. I do think I'd rather see what happened with Macy and Rose. But this is just like a slight notch below. It's not like, oh, I'm way disappointed that they could only get Tracy. I think Tracy's a great replacement. And for her, this is a really good test. And for Rose, I don't know, man. If she's serious at 125, taking this fighter's undefeated UFC record would be a really big achievement. Again, she's going to get a lot of size too. So, yeah, I'm a solid 8 on this one, Mike.
A solid 8. Jed, I don't know where your score's going. Mishulin scores, Safart scorecard. Do you agree with AK in his 8? Are you surprised by that answer?
I mean, this is definitely not an 8. First, though, I'd like to learn you a little something, because you erroneously came out here saying that we don't know what the Ball Arena is named after. And that's ridiculous, Mike, because it's named after the Ball Corporation. Obviously, Titans, Giants, in the aerospace and packaging industries.
What?
Most famous for producing, glass jars, lids, and at-home canning equipment. And then they diversified and just became a multi-billion-dollar corporation that does a whole bunch of stuff, including aerospace technology. So that's what it's. It's a Colorado-based company.
This is real?
Yes, they are based in Colorado. The Ball Corporation.
I'm looking at this.
So I don't know why you guys didn't know this.
I'm just reading what you know off the top of your head, obviously. Founded in 1880 by Frank and Edmund Ball.
The Ball brothers. Not to be confused with the Ball brothers of the NBA.
Yes, which is a little confusing, but yes.
I mean, I just assumed y'all's, maybe you don't have as diverse a portfolio of investment stocks and bonds as I do, but the Ball Corporation, they've been doing big things for a long time, guys. One of the big things they aren't doing, though, is playing host to UFC Denver, which is not an 8. It's just not. There's some things happening on this card that are good. Like the main event, it's short notice, but it's still pretty good. Tracy Cortez on the come up. Rose Namajunas, been one of the best fighters in the world for a very long time. So it was a good fight. Ponzinibbio Salikov is just like, I don't know. Salikov's old and weird, and Ponzi had really high ceiling and he never got there. I don't know what to make of that. I absolutely adore Drew Dober versus Jean Silva. Particularly Silva coming in, fought 2 weeks ago and was like, I killed that dude. I am more than content to step in against Drew Dober and hit him on his big old chin. That fight's going to rock. And then the rest of this is, like there's a Bonfim brother. Josh Van, I love Josh Van as a prospect, so that's pretty cool. The rest of it's just sort of whatever. So obviously this is not a Mashulin star system. This is a fight above replacement tussle sort of score here. And I didn't do the hard math, but just kind of ballparking it, just looking it over. We're getting a 1, 2, 3, probably a 4. It's probably a 4 on the fight above replacement tussle scale. So certainly we've seen worse, but as far as a on location, non-Apex card, it's one of the lighter offerings the UFC has put forth this year, which is kind of a recurring theme for how 2024 has gone, frankly.
Yeah, dude, this card is taking a beating from the main event. We lost Mike Bilott, Gilbert Urbina. We lost Viviane Araújo versus Jasmine Jasavizzi. But now Fatima Klein's coming in, who is a favorite right out the gate, which I think is really interesting. She's good and very solid and is going to have a great future in the UFC. I'm very surprised she opened as the betting favorite here. Drew Dober, Mike Davis is a great fight. We get Gian Silva, which is still good. Chris Duncan, Nazim Sadikov was supposed to happen on this card. Sadikov had 2 different opponents, and I think is he off the card altogether now? This is just, it's been a tough stretch for some of these cards. So he's off the card altogether. I would have loved Sadikov versus Drew Dober, but in comes Gian Silva. But let's talk about the main event real quick, Jed. We got Rose Namajunas versus Tracy Cortez. I'm curious what you believe is at stake here. What awaits the winner? How close to a title shot are they? I mean, Tracy Cortez being able to put Rose Namajunas' name on her resume would be a very big deal. We have Alexa Grasso kind of waiting to figure out who she's going to fight at the Sphere in September. Is it Valentina? Is it Manon Fiorot? Could one of these women step in and play spoiler to everybody else involved, Jed?
No, not that. It's I don't know what's at stake here, right? Because it's not a title fight. It is certainly, this would be by far the biggest win of Tracy Cortez's career. I'm looking at it. Rose number 6 in the UFC's ranking, so this will elevate her sort of immediately into that upper echelon. It would obviously be huge, but it also probably just means she's fighting Erin Blanchfield next, which that's tough. And so I think the winner of this fight is getting Erin Blanchfield for maybe a title eliminator, depending on timelines. But the UFC I was answering this question off of Mailbag the other day, and it is, I don't know what the UFC has done with their women's divisions, but it feels like they have just given up on them. They are rudderless and insane. Like having Grasso sit out as long as she has for the Noche card is kind of lunacy. because you have multiple people to get in there and fight for. Like, I get it. You want her to be at Noche. That's cool. Sometimes timelines just don't line up. And so you got to pivot to something else. Like, you've been doing that all the time. They didn't give a shit about Alex Pereira fighting on 301 in Brazil. Why is this like where we're going to stand 10 toes down and die on the hill? This division needs to be moving because there are people for it to move with, and instead it has felt stagnant. And so we have a main event like this that's objectively pretty decent, that should be meaningful, and kind of isn't, just because they're not fighting for a title next. Maybe their next fight is a title eliminator, but if Grasso, beats either Shevchenko or Firo in September, like best case scenario, she would then defend again in December. And if that doesn't happen, and instead she gets injured, we have to push this back. We're talking the next flyweight title defense is not till early 2025. So then what is the winner of this going to wait until next summer? I guess, but that's not a way to build momentum or energy around a weight class. They're mismanaging the shit out of their female divisions right now. And so that's why we have a main event that's okay, but feels lesser than it was,
AK, do we have stakes here? And just going back to Jed's point, is there anything that the matchmakers could do to put the flyweight division, the women's flyweight division, at par in your mind with the women's bantamweight division, which you revere so much and so highly?
No. Automatic no to the second part of that question. Does not even need to be elaborated on. To the first part of the question, which I guess we can discuss a little bit further. It's whoever wins this at least puts themselves on that short list and says, hey, I'm available to fight for the title at some point in the next 6 months, right? That's Tracy Cortez has been saying all the right things about saying, oh, if Valentina's not available, I'm happy to fight in the Sphere. Happy to fight Alexa. And that'd be a great Noche Riyadh season, UFC Noche 306, whatever, it's the Sphere in Las Vegas, headliner, co-headliner, whatever else they can get on the card. So Tracy Cortez saying all the right things. Rose is Rose. Rose has a following. She's just by moving up to the division, she already kind of put herself on the list of the UFC matchmakers, going like, oh man, hopefully we can throw her in a title fight someday. And it's good that she got a win. She needed a win. She got one in there after sort of I won't say disappointing, because I don't think a lot of people assumed she was going to beat Manon. But if she had beaten Manon, she would have again moved right to the front of the line, either number 1 or number 2 contender. So just being on the list is good. And like I said, we don't know what's happening with the Sphere. We've heard a lot of rumors. Shevchenko doesn't want to fight there or isn't ready to fight there, and that's fine. And then one of these names could slide in. It should be Manon, but we know what can happen. Like, Manon gets injured, guess what? It's going to be Tracy or Rose. So that much is on the line. It is not a surefire number 1 contenders fight. I don't care what happens. I don't care if Tracy Cortez submits Rose in the first round. I don't care if Rose friggin' head kicks Tracy in 30 seconds. They should not leapfrog Manon. I know a lot of people will ask for it because we have the memories of Goldfish, but Manon, she beat Rose quite definitively. She beat the woman who no one wanted to fight, Erin Blanchfield, very convincingly. Manon should be locked into, if she is healthy, should be locked in that number 1 contender spot. And frankly, again, if Shevchenko can't fight, I see no reason why Manon shouldn't get that spot. So there's, like I said, I do think there's a lot on the line in the main event, but I guess that's a lot that may vary. Like, the meaning may vary to some people. I think it's a lot just to be put in a position where if other people get knocked out of the way, you become a title contender. But other people who are hoping for some sort of guarantee, I don't think so. I don't think you can say that the winner of this, no matter how they do it, stamps themselves into leaps to the front of the line. I just don't think that'd be fair.
Well, as we've learned, availability is your best friend. So whoever wins this fight should make themselves ready and available in case that phone rings. As was mentioned earlier, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Muslim Salikov, the co-main event, Drew Dober, Gian Silva. That ain't going to the cards. It's going to be fun as hell. They're just going to stand there and punch and punch and punch until somebody falls down. Gabriel Bonfim versus Angelosa. Who knew Angelosa would be on a main card outside of the Apex in 2024 after what happened in the Brian Battle fight? Christian Rodriguez is back, fights Julian Erosa, and the main card will open with Cody Brundage versus Abdul Razak Al Hassan. So we know what's going to happen in that fight. Either ARA is going to get Cody out there in vicious fashion in round 1, or Cody's going to submit him in round 2 or and beyond. So that's your main card. We'll have more coverage more discussions about UFC Denver throughout the week, but let's move on to another tremendous UFC division. It's the heavyweight division. Point for round 2 goes to Jed Meshew for giving us the history of the Ball Corporation. I
You had to learn
so
something.
much.
Look, you come
I learned
to
it.
BTL for the takes. You stay for the enriching facts that add to your life. Buy Ball.
Yes.
Ball
As
don't
we have
lie.
learned, that's true. But as we have learned throughout the course of MMA history, no one can enrich lives and enrich intelligence and teach you more about the meaning of life than former UFC heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic. And boy, is he out there just giving people enrichment left and right. Does an interview during International Fight Week, and this might be the most Stipe interview in the history of Stipe interviews. He does it with CBS Sports. Mostly the interview was things we have heard a bunch over the past 16 or so months, but there was one thing that stood out to everybody. Like Jon Jones, like Dana White, Stipe Miocic is basically saying, hey, MMA fans, this is the fight. This is the fight everybody wants to see. We ain't holding up the division. Here's a quote. I get it. I'd feel the same way, but I'm not taking anything away from him being Tom Aspinall. The UFC can do what they want. It is what it is. There's only one guy I want to fight. It's Jon Jones. But at the same time, the UFC can pick who they want. People don't know this, but there are a couple other times where I was ready to fight and they gave them another guy. What am I supposed to do? I'm not holding up any division like everyone says. I don't care. Do what you want and stop crying. I'm not saying Tom's crying. I'm saying the fans and stuff like that. So Jed, let's go to you, because as a man who, I think it's clear as a bell, and it has been for a long time, as a man who loves the direction of the UFC heavyweight division, you sing its praises all the time. Your reaction to Stipe joining the fun train with Jon Jones and Dana White for a fight only those three and maybe Matt Brown actually want to see?
I want to start by saying I'm disappointed in Matt Brown, who I like a good deal. But maybe it's just an old thing. You know, we're living in a time where being old gives you a lot more power and makes you a lot crazier. And maybe it's just being an old dude. You can't see reason or logic at any point in time anymore. But like objectively, you are holding up the division. Also, to say functionally, to speak out of both sides of your mouth of this is the fight everyone wants, quit bitching about it. Well, if everyone wanted it, there probably wouldn't be people bitching about it, is all I'm saying. It is, I do agree with the Colonel that Stipe is the least to blame in all of this. Like, he is waiting for a heavyweight title fight. That is objectively fair and reasonable. Like, yeah, I'm going to retire or I'm going to fight Jon. That's fine. But that doesn't entirely like remove you from the part you are playing in a collaboration that is squandering the heavyweight division right now. And there's just no other way to say it. Even if you are one of the 6 people alive who are deeply invested in this fight happening, cool. You're allowed to like the things you want to like. The heavyweight belt has not been defended since last February or March. Sorry, last March. Just had to look at it again. Like, that's 13, 14 months now? Like, we're coming up on this not being defended in over a year and a half. It is objectively a problem because, yes, like Jon got hurt. That's a thing. Well, why didn't we do, if we wanted to do Stipe Jon, why did we wait until November? Like, we could have done this earlier. Nope. You are part and parcel of this. You're not the most to blame. I would say the UFC and Jon Jones are the most to blame. But you can't be like, oh, the UFC can do whatever they want. Just deal with it. Like, this is how we deal with it. I get to bitch about it being stupid, and you cannot listen too. Like, that's also an option for you. You can bitch about me, or you can turn the fuck off. But like, this is just how this is going to work. And you got to be okay with it. You have to understand that not everyone's going to be super stoked on a 42-year-old retired firefighter fighting for the heavyweight belt 18 months since it was last defended. And since you, Stipe Miocic, sure, all-time great. I'm not here to dispute where you sit in the pantheon of MMA. You haven't won a fight. You have not won a fight in 4 years. With Andrei Arlovsky leaving the promotion, you have no victories over any human being currently employed and competing for the UFC. By any objective measure, you getting a title shot is insane. And so you got to kind of just take it on the chin if people are going to be like, this is stupid as shit, because it is. It is. You should take it. I'm not saying throw this away. Take the freebie being handed to you, but maybe don't lecture me on like shutting the fuck up, because you should probably just be the one who's doing that.
I was waiting for the there it is. There it is.
Ridiculous.
The horn is coming. One
That
correction.
almost came off.
Yes, I can't wait for AK's reaction to this. I'm sure it's going to be even spicier. But one correction to what Jed just said. The UFC heavyweight title has not been defended by a champion in longer than that, since January 2022.
Yep.
I didn't even
Francis
think of that.
Ngannou
Oh
beat
my
Cyril
God.
Gane.
Yeah.
That was the last time
Oh my
the
God.
undisputed UFC heavyweight title was defended.
My best friend,
Defended.
we're on the same page. Exactly how I was going to open my statement. Like, it's been even crazier than Jed thinks. Yes, Ngannou defeating Gane. So by the time, assuming this fight happens in November, as Jon Jones seems to claim and everyone seems to think, which is it should, Madison Square Garden card, it'll have been almost 3 years since we've had an actual heavyweight title defense. And frankly, it's not even really a heavyweight title defense. We all know Tom Masvidal is the real heavyweight champion, but fair enough. We will count, for the sake of us ending this terrible streak of, again, no defenses, we will certainly look at Jon Jones's defense of what the UFC has deemed the undisputed heavyweight title as an actual defense. But yeah, almost 3 years, guys. It'll be whatever, 34 months, something like that. 34 months since we last saw it. That's pretty crazy. No, my math is terrible. Anyway, Mike, what was the question again? Stipe.
To Stipe, yes.
I'm Team Stipe. I'm Team Stipe. All right, not as in like I care about seeing this Jon Jones fight. I'm not against it. It's certainly a fight I'm sure once upon a time, when it was first brought up, when the possibility of Jon Jones moving up, to heavyweight, whenever that talk first started 7 or 8 years ago, however long it was, when Jon Jones kept saying, I'm going to go up to heavyweight, bulking up to heavyweight. I think around that time I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, him and Stipe would be cool. Yeah, and then Stipe we know is one of the most successful UFC heavyweight champions at 3 title defenses. Again, not a crazy record, but facts are facts. It is the record for most defenses. So I want to see it. And Miocic in this is blameless. Like I do think he's blameless. I don't think there's anything he can say anyway. Like he can't come out and say like, yeah, Tom's right. I'm stepping aside for Tom. The UFC wouldn't even care. Like the UFC would just be like, no, we have our plans. Stipe, you're fighting Jon, and that's how we've set it in stone for the last year, and that's how it's going to be. And again, and why would Stipe even do that? Like I just cannot blame Stipe in this at all. I don't mind people disliking Stipe for being in this position where this fight has to happen, and the fact that he is, the B side of it, as it were. I don't mind people being upset about that, but I'm not upset at all with Miocic's comments, because obviously he's being asked about this. He's being poked. He's being prodded. He has to give some sort of response. I'm sure he's tired of hearing it too. Like I said, if I was him and I had people shouting at me and somehow blaming me for this fight happening and this division being held up, I'd just be like I'd be the 50 Cent. The clip. What did he say? Fuck me for? Like, I didn't do anything. Like, I know I'm going to retire soon. I want to fight Jon Jones. I want my big payday. I'm going to stay quiet for the most part. And when time comes to an interview, as it did with CBS, I'm going to say how I feel about it, which is, people just calm down. We all know the fight's going to happen. Just accept it. And again, I'm one of the screaming fans. I am one of the screaming fans who just wishes Jon would fight Tom Masvidal, or really almost any heavyweight besides Stipe. But I think there is some wisdom in laying back and accepting what we're going to get. And you know me on the Prince of Positivity, the optimism that Jon Jones won't just retire and we will still see him fight Aspinall. Or even if that doesn't happen, at the very least, the division can move on from both these guys. We can give Stipe and Jon their flowers for the rest of eternity, and then we can celebrate Tom Aspinall or Sergey Pavlovich or whoever, whatever other heavyweight that comes up, Jelton Almeida, and leads us into a new era of heavyweight glory. But I'm ready for it to be over with. I think Stipe is too, and really that's really all he can say about it.
Just don't do it for the belt. Like, that's the easiest.
I know.
Like,
I know.
fight's fine.
I know.
Just don't
easily could have been. Doesn't need it. Doesn't need it.
You don't have to say anything. Is the thing, AK? Much less chastise
He's being
people.
interviewed. He's being interviewed.
Sure. Well, just don't even do it. But two, you can just be honest. You can just say, hey, like, tell me when you turn down a promotion, because that's functionally what this is. I'm getting a promotion. Would you turn down a promotion? I sure wouldn't. Like, why would I do anything else? I totally understand the frustration. That's between y'all and the UFC. I'm doing what's best for me, and that's cool. And no one would have an issue with it. It's to be like, I'm not holding up as an objective lie. That's just a stone lie. You are part of what is happening here, and don't lie to me. While you were talking, AK, something that and this will be the end of me here, because I have to leave it. I have to, for my own mental well-being. You said something that I agree, that brought me back, and I agreed with. When this was first pitched, it wasn't great, but it did make sense, right? Like, okay, Jon just won. Tom Aspinall wasn't really right there yet. Curtis Blades, like, we're sure. Why not? It's still a little silly, but it's fine to do a Legends thing. But Patrice O'Neal has this joke, and I won't say what the joke is actually about, because that's not really for this show. But like, the punchline of the joke is RP Patrice O'Neal, by the way. Punchline of the joke is, like, I'll eat some stale Cracker Jacks, but I want them right now. I'm not trying to wait for stale Cracker Jacks. You give them to me right now. And Stipe and Jon is stale Cracker Jacks. It's not a great fight for any number of reasons, but if it happened now, if it happened immediately from when it was there, totally fine. The fact that we are now waiting a year and a half for stale Cracker Jacks is just mind-bogglingly awful, and no one wants it. So don't come at me because you're frustrated that people are rightly saying this is bullshit. You just got to take it on the chin, because that's the cost of doing business. Be like, yeah, I totally get you guys are frustrated. I'm going to keep doing me. Talk to the UFC about that, because this is what's good for me. And that's a fine answer. Not, I'm not holding up the division. Quit crying. It's dumb. It's very dumb and ridiculous.
All right, let's have a little fun with this. If you could
and
present
if Stipe
betting
wins,
odds,
I'll die.
No. We're not. No.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
We're not going there. We're not going there. We're doing something a little different.
Thank God.
AK, if you could present betting odds right now, like, you get to set the odds on this. You get to release it for the community to bet on. They can buy or sell however they want to do it. What are the odds that you would open with that Jon Jones versus Stipe happens in 2024? I'm not saying that this fight will be announced. I'm not saying what are the odds that it is announced? What are the odds that there is a poster made? The question is, what are the odds that the fight actually starts and ends in a UFC octagon this year?
I'm not saying this is what I believe, but if I'm trying to just make odds that will generate betting interest, I do think it is favorable at the moment. I do think we have all sort of agreed that, as much whether you want the fight to happen or not, we're looking ahead. We see this November card. Jon Jones is saying November. We're aware of the nature of his injury. They gave us a vague timetable when he suffered the injury, and everything seems to be lining up for a third quarter Jon Jones return. Miocic been sitting on his ass this whole time. He should be ready as soon as that phone call comes. As soon as the contract is officially ready to sign, he should be signing in a second, faxing that back. So it's favorable. Now, it's not crazy favorable given the history of both men, as we have gone over multiple times during this segment. It has been a long time since Stipe has won a fight. It has been a long time since Stipe has even been in the cage. Jon Jones is so erratic. You don't know what's going to happen with him, with outside the cage issues, possibly other injuries, just him Jon Jonesing his career in some way. But it is favorable. So if I'm trying to draw interest and trying to get people to bet on this, I'm giving them minus I think it's favorable. Okay, I was almost gonna set it too low. I'll go minus 250 that it happens this year. Minus 250. I think it's fair. I think we're all feeling pretty confident about it. You're gonna have to put down some cash to make a profit off of this. So I'm gonna go minus 250. I don't think it should go too higher than that though. I think if you go higher than that, I think a lot of people are just gonna stay away.
Jed, as a co-host of No Bets Barred, did he set the line perfectly? So we got to put everything into context, right? Stipe hasn't fought in forever. He's getting older by the day. Jon Jones has physical problems. He's been getting injured, had multiple surgeries. He has issues with the law. There's lots of hurdles that both men are going to have to leap over at some point between now and November, which is the targeted date and time frame for this fight to actually happen. And we know how steadfast Dana White is on this. I think even if it falls through again, I think Dana's going to do everything in his power to try to rebook it again until it actually happens. So do you agree? Minus 250, AK says, yes, this fight happens in 2024. Is that the right number?
I'm really proud of AK. This man knew nothing about gambling.
Wow.
And that's a pretty good line. I might skew a little bit higher. I want to keep it under minus 300 just because, like AK said, I think when you get to that, you're going to start disincentivizing people from taking that line. But it's going to happen. This fight is going to happen this year. And I'm pretty confident in that. And God willing, it does. So we can finally be done with this and move on to the next stupid thing. But by all accounts, it seems like Jon could fight now, but they're just waiting because they already have the pay-per-views booked, et cetera, et cetera. So they're just going to run it back a year after the fact at Madison Square Garden, and that's fine. I don't think Stipe is old. I also think Stipe at least recognizes that if he pulls out of this fight, it may never happen because then he's old. So Stipe is just gonna fight regardless of the scenario. And Jon, knock on wood, hopefully he doesn't get injured. He's old. He added weight, which honestly probably makes you a little more injury prone. This is that, but the UFC handles their own drug testing now, so I think we're safe on that front. Jon hasn't been arrested in some time, so that train's never late. You got to always kind of be around for that to be there, but let's just assume that maybe he's grown up a little bit, won't get arrested. I think it's very, very likely this fight does happen this year, and so I'd bet that line up to minus 500. But I think setting it, closer to minus 3, somewhere that you're getting action both sides of it at that point. So that's around where I'm at, but I'm really confident it does happen.
I love that we have to preface it with, let's assume he doesn't get arrested. That's where that's where we are with Jon Jones.
He hasn't been arrested in a while. Good on him.
This is true. Well
done.
I know, but that's just so sad that we have this caveat with him. Man, this guy's done a good job not getting arrested in a while, and it's oh, how did it come to this? How did it come to this that our greatest fighter of all time, this has to be involved in every discussion about him? Is when's the last time he got? Oh man, he hasn't got arrested in a year. He's doing okay. Jon Jones is doing okay. It's oh God, horrible.
All right, Jed, you get to pick the odds for this last question. What are you setting the odds at right now that the interim heavyweight title will be defended more than once?
Oh, that's a really good one, Mike. Okay, so it's going to get defended. It's going to get defended once this weekend, or not this weekend, but at the end of this month. And then I'm going to go high. Again, you want to incentivize action both sides, so maybe not as high as I'd like, but minus 275.
Oh.
And I think it's very more likely than that, but you want to get action. I think there's a 0% chance Jon Jones fights Tom Aspinall. I also, if it's not abundantly clear, I do believe Jon Jones, one of the greatest fighters who's ever lived, is going to beat an old retired firefighter who literally has not fought in 3 years. So I think he's going to pretty comfortably win that fight. And then I feel some level of confidence that Jon will retire. And if he doesn't retire, he's 100% going to fight Alex Pereira instead of Tom Aspinall. So, I think it's pretty likely that Tom Aspinall has to defend against Alexander Volkov, I guess.
Yeah, and look, if Curtis Blades wins the interim belt,
If Curtis Blades wins, this isn't a question. If Curtis Blades wins, they're probably am wrong because they're probably stripping him. Just like, you don't get to have it. Leave.
Does it? It has to stay the interim title throughout these defenses, right, Mike? It can't become the undisputed title. You're not.
Oh no, it has to remain the interim title. So what I would suggest is if Stipe wins, then whoever the champion is going to get elevated more than likely, because I think it's a pretty good chance he retires. Now, if Jon wins,
oh god damn it, guys!
If Jon wins, he's probably holding on to the belt. He's probably going to take a sabbatical. I'll see you later on next year. But they're not going to. The UFC is not going to publicly strip him of the belt. They're not going to.
No, they're going to strip the interim champion. I think. This is my no. Honestly, I'm half joking. This is why I'm actually very far apart with Jen on this one. I was thinking plus. I was thinking like
wow.
Just because I feel like there's so many ways for the interim title to not become the interim title. Either, like we said, we have some sort of retirement after, no matter who wins, we have some sort of retirement after the Jones Stipe fight, and then the interim gets elevated to undisputed, or again, they just, I don't know, vacate. Like, it sounds weird to say that they would strip Tom of the interim title, but yes, what are they going to do if Jon Jones wins? So he's not retiring, disappears for another 8-9 months. Like, what are they going to do? I guess this is why Jed is confident that he'll get defended more than once. I'm not. I think there'll be some chicanery so that there are not 2 heavyweight titles floating around. Even though, again, that might be the only thing they can do if Jon Jones disappears. So I was weird. I was like floating towards plus. I was floating towards like plus 175 or something. Maybe I have a very weird look at it. I just feel like it won't get defended more than once, or it won't be interim for long. I think that's my only issue with it.
I did also forget that earlier this year, Jon Jones allegedly assaulted a drug tester. So,
allegedly,
not great,
Allegedly. That, I think that doesn't count as a arrest or anything, right?
I mean, he's not arrested, but
he was not arrested.
Not great.
Some people got that headline wrong. Not MMA fighting.
Not arrested, but it's not great. And to Michael Sparks in the comments, I realize that I've said this several times, and it's perhaps not grammatically correct. When I say retired firefighter, I do not mean that he is a retired firefighter. I mean a retired fighter who is now a firefighter, because he doesn't fist fight people for money anymore. He hasn't done it in 3 years.
Yeah. And by the time this fight happens, we'll be knocking on the door of 4. And if it doesn't happen, then we're going to be over 4 years, which is crazy. But the UFC will probably keep going back to this.
Don't say that.
All right, the last time he won a fight? Does anyone remember the last time old Stipe Miocic won a fist fight?
Yep. March 2020. Oh, no, it was before that. DC. That was in 2020.
Sure
That
is.
was pandemic
DC.
time. Yeah, that was pandemic. August of
Just
2020?
inside this decade. He's got one fight this decade.
When was that fight?
2020.
Wait, what month?
4-year anniversary is coming up.
Was it August,
August,
2020?
Yeah. August, yeah.
That was the Sterling Jan co-main event, was it not?
It sounds
Was
right.
that card?
Let me look.
We could go down memory lane. Jose would know. Maybe he's in
No.
the chat.
Oh, you know what card that was, guys? The co-main event was actually Cheeto Vera beating Sean O'Malley. That's the last time Stipe beat somebody.
Wow.
Whew.
And he beat Daniel Cormier, who I love and respect, was old and clearly washed. Like, come on, man.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm very excited where we're going next, because what better topic to go to after the heavyweight division than going to this one? Point for round 3 goes to it's Jed Meshew. I mean, he just keeps teaching us things and giving us vital information that we can bring to the
everyday life
barbershop or the bar stool.
You have a PhD in Stipe Jones and the heavyweight division at this point. I think you have studied it. You have
in the heavyweight division. I might.
People have come to you asking for questions, providing their own answers, giving you stuff to think about. You've had to talk about this whole situation a lot over the last more than almost, I think, a year, at least a year.
I mean, it's over a year. It's got to be close to that. And that's the thing. Like, when I started the chickens aren't goats thing, I was like, this would be a fun gimmick for a couple of months, and then they'll finally fight. And it's like, actually, they're just never going to fight. Like, we were all under the impression, like, ooh, they might fight at International Fight Week because, like, Jon should be ready by then. And it's like, what if we just wait? Jon's ready. It's fine. We're just going to wait. Okay. What's happening?
Well, Jon and Stipe has not happened yet, but Darren Till boxed this past weekend, gentlemen. I don't know if you're aware of this. Social Knockout 3. Darren Till, first fight since he was stopped by the now current UFC middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis at UFC 282. Darren Till boxed Mo Moody, who is a 4-fight pro MMA fighter. He's fought for UAE Warriors a couple of times. Not a great name, but fight ends in weird fashion. TKO, perhaps a punch to the back of the head or two, and then all hell breaks loose. There's a skirmish, there's a brawl, and this became like the second biggest story in combat sports, at least on our website, because it was so ridiculous and crazy. So I will begin with you, AK. When it comes to Darren Till and what we just saw this past Saturday, would you call this the beginning of the resurgence or the continuation of the decline?
Oh, it's definitely not a decline. It's definitely not a decline. I don't know. When you said resurgence, I was like, I don't know if I can say resurgence, but if I have to choose between the two, it's more of a resurgence than a decline. There's a Russian promotion, MMA promotion. If anyone who follows Matisic on Twitter will be very, very familiar with the answers to this promotion. Even if you don't follow him, you've probably seen the clips he's uploaded that have been re-uploaded by other sites on Twitter, Instagram, etc. Shout out Matisic. It's called Hardcore Fighting Championship. It's this Russian promotion. And it's very well known because it's always before the fight, there's like a brawl on the stage. Guys are like flying knee, KOing each other before the fight, like are their cornermen or something on the stage. After the fight, there's brawls, guys cutting crazy promos, throwing microphones at each other. And I'm very confident a lot of it is pre-planned and staged, and or at the very least, that everyone involved is sort of pushed to do these things. Like, hey, if you feel like kicking the guy in the nuts after the fight, we're not gonna fine you for it. We're just saying wink wink. So that's hardcore. If you've seen those clips, you've probably seen Hardcore Fighting Championship. There's other promotions out there. I think people saw the fake proposal as well. It was a proposal. I don't know if it was fake, and then the guy got rejected. The fighter. This clip went viral. I believe it was staged. I'm very, very confident it was staged. I don't have any proof. I'm just saying there's a lot of European promotions out there, regional promotions that do this kind of wacky stuff, and they get clicks. They go viral. I'm talking about it on the show right now. Were I a more cynical man, I would suggest that what happened at the end of this Darren Till and Moody fight may have had a little bit of staging. Because I'll be honest, I knew the fight was happening during the week. We talk a lot. I mean, listen, guys, we have meetings. All right, we talk about stuff that's coming up during the weekend. If it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have known about it. As the day approached, I did not remember that Darren Till was boxing because we had the Masvidal Diaz stuff happening, and it kind of just my mind got lost in the shuffle. It wasn't until this clip started circling around, like, oh yeah, Darren Till also boxed. And now, as Mike said, everyone's talking about it. It did very good traffic for our website. I managed to do good traffic for a number of websites. We had Darren Till pop up in the MMA Hour. That maybe would have happened even if that moment hadn't happened, but I'm not entirely sure. Like, if he just wins a boxing match against this guy who no one's heard of, and I know Darren was supposed to box Julio Cesar Chavez on the July 20th card, the Jake Paul Tyson card, so he had to take what he could get. If he beats this guy by a decision or something, we are very much not talking about it. It's certainly not a BTL topic. Like I said, maybe he appears on the MR, maybe he doesn't. But the clip was so eye-catching. Again, anyone in the combat sports sphere, it's very hard not to see it. It's just a part of me that really thinks that this was, again, if not rehearsed, encouraged. That there was some chaos encouraged. The ending was very weird. It's somehow still a TKO, even though like Darren Till himself acknowledged, like, yeah, I caught him in the back of the head, and then the guy, it looked like he couldn't continue, but then he gets a TKO win because he couldn't continue. Everything about it is very strange. I'm a big pro wrestling guy. People know this, so I feel like I know carny behavior and shenanigans when I see it. This was pretty carny to me. So to answer the question asked, I do think this is part of a resurgence. I do think it's a calculated part of a resurgence, and Darren Till really could not have gotten more publicity this weekend after losing his original fight with the July 20th fight. So just gets this no name, and we're talking about him. And I think people do want to see him box again. It's sort of brought back the talks of everyone still wants to see him fight Mike Perry someday. And we're saying, hey, maybe he fights Masvidal. Like he's talked about fighting Masvidal or Diaz, right? He's back in it. So if it's between resurgence and dip, it is clearly a part of a resurgence.
You agree with that, Jed?
I do not. I mean, good for him. Got a headline. Kind of, I mean, AK didn't outright say it, but it kind of sort of along the lines of this feels like this might be a bit of a work, you know, maybe this was, you know, a bit of shenanigans may have been afoot here as a way to kind of drum up interest on an otherwise empty weekend, and credit to them because it certainly did. Obviously people tuned in for that. And I'm not saying that Darren Till is not going to get big opportunities. I think he probably will. Maybe Masvidal, they do a boxing rematch. Maybe that's something that's in play here. He's just not going to resurge from anything because he's not good. Like he's just, Darren Till has, he's like a discount variety Nate Diaz, where he has the ability to make people think he is better than he is. But when pushes come to shove, he has never won the fights that have been needed. Like that's Nate's secret sauce is he wins fights when it matters. Like he wins a big fight every now and again. Darren Till just hasn't. That's why he lost like his last 8 in the UFC or whatever. And then he's going here and maybe he can, you know, string this along, get a little bit more. He's interesting. He has the fun accent. People tune in, but is he going to beat Jorge Masvidal? Probably not. At some point you have to win some fights. And I just have no confidence in him to do that at this point in his career, which is really weird because his career has been a fascinating descent into failure while not feeling like it to large swaths of people. So I'll believe he resurges when he wins a meaningful fight and not a moment until then.
All right. I mean, I had more about this, but we got to move on because it's getting late. We got things to do. So the point for round 4 goes to AK. Great job. 2-2.
I want to be clear to the commenter. I don't hate Darren Till. Darren Till is not a Michael Chandler, who I hate for very specific and good reasons, or Stipe, who I also hate for very specific and good reasons. Darren Till just isn't good. That's not me hating. I actually find him amusing, but like, no, he's just not good.
Well, that means we're heading to the knockout round, ladies and gentlemen. Heading to the knockout round. One question will decide it all. Jed, you are the defending champion. What do you want to do? You want to go first? You want to go second? What are we thinking here?
I'll go first. Screw it. Let's fire in.
Perfect.
I hope this is not what I think it's going to be.
You bet. I mean, you literally just mentioned the man's name, and the man decided, you know what? I've been off Twitter for a little while. I haven't really done a whole bunch of things lately on Twitter. Let's come back out and let's knock some rust off, shall we? I am talking about the one and only Michael Chandler, who has just gone and started to quote tweet a whole bunch of people when it comes to different things. So let's run down the last 4 tweets Michael Chandler just sent 45 minutes ago. Someone named Ron says that Conor McGregor is going to retire Michael Chandler, and then they should do. And Ron said they should do the McGregor Diaz trilogy. Michael Chandler says, "Sit down, Ron. Better idea. Me and Nate Diaz fight like real men while Conor sits on a yacht and watches on pay-per-view in his slippers." Then responds to a man named Josh who says Chandler versus McGregor going down September 14th. Chandler says loading. Dean says ain't happening. Conor won't fight in the UFC again. Michael Chandler says the new Where's Waldo. The Mac Daddy had a great run though. And the one that has been making the rounds, Jed, iFlowman says, Mike, what's your strategy against someone like McGregor? To which Chandler responds, instill fear. Let him pull out of the fight and embarrass himself. Be known as the guy who retired McGregor without ever throwing a punch. 1 minute on the clock, Jed. How do you grade Michael Chandler's Tuesday, almost said Thursday, on Twitter over the last 45 minutes? Go.
It's terrible. He's so terrible. This is like, again, I don't begrudge him doing what he is doing. I understand the financial benefits, and I've never said that this is stupid of him. I do find it deeply amusing to me personally, but like, he even starts out by being like, what if me and Nate fist fight each other while Connor sits back on a yacht? Dude, that's not trash talk. Obviously, that's the better choice. I would rather sit on a yacht than fist fight someone, you idiot. And he goes into like, it's never going to happen at the Sphere. We already know this. And the last one is just the dumbest one possible of instill fear and let him withdraw. I guarantee you, I do not have like a super high opinion of Conor McGregor. There's zero doubt in my mind that he's not fighting Chandler because he's afraid of Chandler. He just doesn't care. In the same reason I don't fight my neighbors, because I don't care about fighting them. Like, you have to be interested to fist fight someone, and you are boring him, man. And oh God, what a Tuesday.
I'm so glad the timing of the show is just tremendous. AK, you're a fan of trash talk. You're a fan of social media trolling. Michael Chandler has been doing it more and more over the last month or so. Took a little bit of a hiatus, maybe for the long holiday week and weekend, but he came back. I already read them all to you. Your grade for Michael Chandler's recent tweets, and go.
I'll tell you right now. I'll try to do this right. A+. All right. A+, Michael Chandler. Great tweeting, buddy. The kids have a saying, Mike. They talk about tweeting through it. Michael Chandler is tweeting all the way through this MFR. You know, I mean, I think even he and his team have to know this situation, if it was ever even remotely in their control, is so far out of their control that this is all you can do. You're just going to tweet random stuff. You're going to quote tweet people. To steal a line from a great film called Gattaca, Michael Chandler's just swimming along, man, swimming down this, like, he's leaving nothing for the trip back. If he doesn't get this McGregor fight, it's going to be so embarrassing for him. I know he's right. There'll be other fights, other ways to make money. He has ways to make money outside of fighting. Like, financially and career-wise, he's fine. But if he doesn't get this fight, he will forever be tied to this horrible, horrible matchup that no one even really wants anymore. So what can he do? Just keep tweeting through it. A+, Mike. Lean into it. Don't let us bring you down.
I mean, you're not bringing anybody down, AK. A+.
Never. A+.
Very positive.
A++.
Positivity.
Instill
Jed
fear.
is so happy. We should just live stream the rest of the day, and we'll read Michael Chandler's tweets all day to Jed and just have
That'd
him
be great.
If Conor McGregor does just say, you know what, guys, I'm actually retired, there's not a human being alive other than Michael Chandler who will say he's the man who retired Conor McGregor. From like, yeah, I guess Dustin Poirier really did a number on Conor. He could never come back from that catastrophic leg injury.
And then Chandler finished him off. Jed.
With the shove on Tough? Like, what are we doing?
Like, he didn't even throw the shove.
He got shoved. He was the shovey.
And here's the big issue. This is like, fundamentally, he's on the right path of the only way you're going to get this to happen is to just piss Conor off by mocking him. But like, you can't even do it this way. Like, it's so toothless. There's nothing here to be like,
that's his brand.
Conor upset about this. Like, again, just balk at him like a chicken. That's better. Like, that is a better way to do this. It's so useless.
This is the real king of cringe right here, all right? Henry Cejudo has, like, he branded himself the king of cringe, which was great branding, by the way. This is the real king of cringe. Henry Cejudo has nothing on how Michael Chandler has handled the situation over the last year.
It's a great point.
Nothing on it. This is the real. And you know what? If you're the real king of cringe, you don't have to say it. So you just do it. So good job, Mike.
That's the thing. That's a great point, AK, because Cejudo, like, was in a bit. Like, he was doing the cringe bit.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just Michael Chandler speaking, like, from his chest with his whole heart. He, like, unironically says, don't disrespect me with your pity. Be emboldened by me. I instill fear. Like, what?
So
What is happening? How do you interact with him, like, interpersonally? What do his neighbors think of Michael Chandler? Because I'm sure he's a perfectly fine neighbor, but like, do they hang out? Because he just talks so weird all the time.
God, that Henry Cejudo thing is great. I mean, you could literally read between
Where's
Henry
Waldo?
Cejudo's Twitter lines. Like, you know, just by a tweet exactly what he's thinking and what he's trying to do. It's amazing. Either he's being cringe or he's trying to get a job on the UFC broadcast desk. I mean, it's just incredible. It really is incredible how clear.
You can't do
Henry
G-rated
Cejudo is.
trash talk to Conor McGregor. It just doesn't work. The new Where's Waldo? What are you doing? Who is this for?
Casey is here, which means we probably have a winner. Please tell me Michael Chandler was one of the voting options, because that would be the best.
That would actually be terrific.
No. Unfortunately, it was just the winner was. I mean, just between Jed and AK. But we do have a winner. It was a blowout today. Not even close. With 70% of the votes, your winner today is Jed Mishu.
70%. What? This is.
It was a 10-7.
This is a
It was a
Jorge
10-7.
Masvidal situation, you know.
Yeah, 80s. What the?
I don't think it's reflective. I got a lot of good categories for me. You know, it's like being in California with the judges. I got a Jon Jones category. I got Michael Chandler for the final. Like that's in my wheelhouse. It's my brand. So I think it was closer than the scorecards indicated, for sure.
Yes. Jed, any final thoughts for the peeps before you go on vacation?
No, I'm good. Just, MMAfighting.com. You're doing God's work out there. I didn't have to follow any of the nothing happening this past weekend, and I feel like I did. I woke up, I knew everything. I'm going to do exactly the same this weekend. There's no chance I watch Denver live, so keep doing you. You guys are great. And Lewis Hamilton wins a race. Let's go. F1, baby.
AK, how are you feeling about this? Do you feel like you're in California right now?
No, I feel good. I feel good about my performance. The people it's like Stipe said, they should just shut the fuck up, because clearly they don't know what they're talking about, and there you go. Hang it right up there. I'm like I said, I'm with Stipe. I get it. I really know how he feels right now. It's out of my power. The situation's out of my power. What can I do? You just do your best, show up, and you fight Jon Jones. That's what I did today. So, congratulations to Jed. People, if I look out for our round table mid-year awards coming out later this week, so we'll have that. We'll have a little podcast action, and Jed, have a great vacation.
Yes, I think Jed might be able to sneak into that podcast as well before he takes off. Hit the music, Casey. We are done. We'll be back next Thursday, all right? I know I said that last week, but we will legitimately be doing a Thursday show next week because we'll have to recap UFC Denver. We need an extra 2 days to digest everything that happens in Denver. Plus,
might be the return of Cannonball Jed next Thursday.
Maybe the return of Cannonball Jed. And of course, the big one, we have to talk about Verna Jandiroba versus Amanda Lemos at the world's most famous Apex. Yes, we'll squeeze in Jake Paul versus Mike Perry, what's going down as well. But back next Thursday for AK for Jed. I am Mike Heck, the iconic voice of Ashley Lynn takes you home. Good night, everybody.
Love y'all.
This has been Between the Links, an MMA fighting production on the Vox Media Network.